All right, today we're diving into this really fascinating story from the world of photonics, and it's got a little bit of everything. A microscopic mystery, an invisible barrier that just stops science in its tracks, and, well, an incredibly clever fix that solved the whole thing. So, how do you build a racetrack for light? I mean, seriously, imagine trying to design a racetrack, not for some souped-up race car, but for light itself. Well, on the scale of a computer chip, that's exactly what engineers are doing. They're trying to guide these tiny beams of light, photons, through really complex circuits. And you guessed it, just like a real racetrack, the trickiest parts are always the corners. Okay, so the track they actually use is called a photonic crystal waveguide, or a PHC waveguide. The easiest way to think of it is like a microscopic highway, something that's been precision etched right onto a silicon chip. Its whole job is to control and direct the flow of light. And this little component, it's right at the heart of the story we're unpacking today. All right, section 1, a sharp turn for light. You know, this is where the real challenge kicks in. Guiding light down a nice straight path, that's one thing. But trying to make it take a super sharp turn, yeah, that is a whole other ballgame. You see, straight paths are pretty easy, but these sharp corners, they're really, really hard. And it's especially tough for this special kind of light they call slow light. Now, slow light is amazing stuff. It's super useful for building things like advanced sensors or optical switches, mostly because it interacts more strongly with whatever material it's in. But, and this is a big but, it's also really, really delicate. So these 60-degree bends you find in these tiny circuits, they were turning out to be a massive obstacle. So let's zoom in and really take a closer look at this slow light problem, because it was basically a complete showstopper for these advanced optical chips. Okay, so what we're looking at here really just lays the problem out perfectly. If you look at those two bars over on the left, that's for the first set of devices they tested. You can see what's going on. On a straight path, that dark gray bar shows light can pass all the way up to a wavelength of 1678 nanometers, no problem. But as soon as you introduce a simple bend, boom, that blue bar shows the path gets cut off way earlier, down at 1655 nanometers. So that gap, it's 30 nanometers. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much, right? But at this microscopic scale, it is a massive difference. They call it a 30 nanometer blueshift, and it basically acts like an invisible wall that just pops up right at the corner, and it specifically blocks the most useful, most important slow light wavelengths. And here, you can see exactly what that means in practice. Total signal loss. That black line, that's the signal in a straight waveguide. It just sails right through. Easy peasy. But the blue and red lines, that's what happens when you introduce the bends. The signal just plummets. It hits that invisible wall right as it gets into that critical slow light region. That's the red area there. And the transmission just drops straight to zero. Nothing gets through. So the bottom line is crystal clear. The most valuable light, the slow light, is completely blocked at the corner. It just can't make the turn. The racetrack is a total dead end. But you know, engineers had a hunch. They had a hypothesis. What if a really subtle, super precise modification, right there at the corner, what if that could clear the path? What if they could engineer a clever fix? And their proposed solution was just so elegant and simple. I mean, they didn't go and redesign the entire structure. Not at all. They had this theory that by just slightly changing only four, of the tiny little holes that make up the photonic crystal, right at the very tip of the bend, they could solve the whole problem. And we are talking about a tiny change here. So for the second set of devices they tested, the standard holes had a radius of 144 nanometers. The fix they came up with was to reduce the radius of just those 4 special holes at the corner down to 105 nanometers. We're talking about a change of just 39 nanometers. It's almost nothing, but it had the potential to be a huge deal. Okay, so the theory was there. The design was tweaked. The big question is, did this tiny, tiny change actually work? Well, it was time for the simulator to give its verdict. And here is the verdict. Just look at the bars on the right. The simple bend in the second set of devices had that invisible wall, that blue shift, of 15 nanometers. But with the modified bend, the one with those 4 slightly smaller holes, that barrier was slashed all the way down to just 6 nanometers. They didn't just lower the wall, they practically demolished it. The barrier was lowered. The path was cleared. That tiny, clever tweak, it actually worked. By making a change to the structure that's almost impossible to see, the engineers completely restored the path. The slow light could finally navigate the turn. The dead end was officially open for business. Now, this is an awesome story of engineering ingenuity, right? But there's another, much deeper story happening here about how we're even able to tell this story in the first place. This is where things get really interesting. And this quote, this is the big reveal. The simulator, synthetic datasets, and this documentation were produced in whole or in part by an artificial intelligence system. What does that mean? It means the entire analysis we just walked through, all the data, the graphs, the results, none of it came from a physical lab. It's from a document created by a company called Debubin and was all produced by an AI. So think about what this means. An artificial intelligence was essentially just fed the original scientific paper that described this whole phenomenon. And just from reading that text, it built a complete working simulator that could computationally reproduce the paper's experiments, verify the problem we talked about, and then test the proposed solution. All of it. So why does this matter so much? Well, a few big reasons. First, reproducibility. That's a huge cornerstone of science, right? And now AI can help verify old findings almost instantly. Second, accessibility. A researcher anywhere on the planet can now explore these results without needing access to a multi-million-dollar lab. And finally, acceleration. This just dramatically speeds up the whole cycle of scientific discovery, learning, improving, and finding out what comes next. It's a really powerful idea when you think about it. The story of fixing a tiny little racetrack for light is also the story of a powerful new tool for science itself. And it really leaves us with a fascinating question, doesn't it? If AI can instantly verify and reproduce today's research like this, what kind of incredible news discoveries will it help us unlock tomorrow?